We're going to move on into our guest segment with Brace Belden, formerly known as Piss Pick Granddad, formerly known as The Gourmand. We are going to be talking about Jeffrey Jebediah Epstein, giving him a call now. It's been a long time, Brace. Thank you for coming on. Wonderful to have you. There has been some developments in the Jeffrey Epstein saga, and of course, I wanted to bring you on to talk about it because Jeffrey Epstein, he's going down.
This is the year we're finally going to get him. Yeah, so a bunch of names related to I think 2016 lawsuit, defamation lawsuit by Virginia Jeffrey against Ghislaine Maxwell. The rules around this stuff, I'm not going to pretend to really understand them fully, but oftentimes people will like petition the court to be like, hey, like leave other names out of this or whatever, like just, censor as much as you can. And the Miami Herald, I guess, has been in a long lawsuit to get the names unsealed, and all but I think 3 are getting unsealed. And I think one of those is somebody who is misidentified in a photograph, and then a couple of them, I guess maybe don't. I mean, we don't know because we don't know who they are, so we can't really add our opinions to this. But like, they apparently are like just random people who are like around, whose names were just mentioned, who probably understandably want to keep their names out of it.
Yeah, it's not like a client list. One of the 3 names I believe that was taken out is like falsely even brought into the fold as well. Like they weren't even tangentially involved with Jeffrey Epstein. Their just name was brought up inappropriately, apparently.
If that does get unsealed, listen, I didn't know what was going on. I'm sorry. I worked as a butler for a while. So sue me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest, I don't know if any of the big names will be really surprising. Like it's probably gonna be people that you figure,
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
RFK Jr. Yeah, on the which I forgot about that. Yeah, more is coming out about his relationship with Epstein.
Yeah, well, it's not even coming out. He's voluntarily, consistently talking about how he like went on his private jet a lot.
The fossil, he went and dug up fossils with Ghislaine Maxwell. It's like, I'm sorry, I understand he's a Nepo baby or whatever, but like, if you have enough free time in your life between cheating on his wife, which that mother love to cheat. If you have enough time in your life where
he's hot. That's what you have to do that when you're hot.
Women love that. Yeah. First got to get that without smoking cigs. He was digging up fossils with Ghislaine Maxwell, which is the mind boggles. But I mean, I think we're going to get Prince Andrew, all the greats. I think Ehud Barak, I hope that we get kind of more former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. I think we maybe could get more info on their relationship. But at this point, so many names have been connected to Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell in the press and just through various other, like, all that stuff in the Wall Street Journal last year, a lot of stuff that came out in the Virgin Islands, like Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan lawsuits, that I'm not sure that we'll get any new names, but I think that we might, but I think that we'll probably get more insight into what the old names might have been up to.
What's your speculation? What's a juicy tidbit that you think is going to be revealed here? Like best case scenario in your mind?
It's hard to say. I'm hoping that there will just be like, we'll directly be able to like link certain people to certain incidents, because that's always been something that like really the only way we've been able to get that kind of stuff is from either interviews with some of the victims themselves or being able to kind of glean it from court documents or really from schedules and stuff like that. Hopefully we'll be able to just like actually connect people to real dates and real incidents and things like that. The thing is with like a lot of like Epstein associates is that everyone kind of tries to worm their way out of it, because it seems like nobody had any idea what he was doing. None of the people who hung out with him frequently were like, hey, what's up with these 16-year-old girls that you like chill with? Like, why is that girl 14? Everyone was kind of just like, oh, there were girls around. And this just makes it harder for them to say that. The problem with a lot of the Epstein stuff, though, is that like a lot of these guys have tried to really just like worm their way out of it and like distance themselves from it. And so anything that makes it harder for them to do that, I mean, I think is positive.
So Noam Chomsky's going down is what you're saying.
Chomsky's done, dude. He's done. I will say it's so funny because Chomsky follows the playbook of so many of these guys. I don't understand why he responds to emails at all. So many people associated with Epstein, Chomsky included, you'll find out about one thing and then someone will ask them about it. They're like, oh, yeah, that was just like a one-time thing. And like, it's the RFK thing too. It's like, then like you see that their name is on another thing. You're like, hey, wait, what about this? And then like, oh, well, I guess that one too. And it's like with all these guys, where there's smoke, there's fire. They're all chilling with him all the time. Woody Allen was with this guy and like, liberal internationalists from like Norway and stuff. He was basically a party promoter.
Other than just being like the most prolific child sex trafficker of all time, he could have been like an all-around chill guy to be around. He was great at holding a conversation, it seems.
Well, it's so funny because you would think that, right? But like, there's basically no interviews where people are like, dude, I mean, Epstein, I didn't know about all that. I just thought he was a chill dude. Everyone's like, yeah, I didn't really like him. I thought he was kind of like a boorish jerk or like trying to buy his way in.
You think they're doing that because he's dead? So like they're just talking shit after? Like they loved him.
Dude, I'm sorry, dude. I'm not like going to a guy's house that I don't like. Like I at least definitely not more than once. I'm not
100%.
staying with a dude that I hate. That's an insane thing to do. I'm definitely not engaging in child sex trafficking with like a guy who's not my homie or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. If they're a homie, that's different, right?
It's different. It's different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you don't understand. He was super chill. Like he was so cool. I kind of overlooked it. That sort of thing.
All the scientists from MIT that like hung out with him, all of them sort of tried to cover their asses by claiming like, oh yeah, like we just wanted some money from him, but he was like such a pig or whatever. But some of these guys were prostrating themselves in front of Epstein for like, in the college world, chump change, because like the Ivy Leagues are big money ballers, dude. They have billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars.
I mean, I guess that's how they do it. Like they do it with not just Jeffrey Epstein, but like every single person. And that's how they accumulate it. That part I understand. I think it's mostly just like access. It's the same thing behind like, I guess, Harvey Weinstein. You know what I mean? Like everybody knows. A lot of people know. A lot of people, or maybe some people kind of know. And then they're like, okay, but he is the guy you have to deal with, I guess. And while there are plenty of like, as far as we know, non-child sex trafficking multimillionaires and billionaires out there that are willing to, pump up the endowments of these institutions. I feel like it's more so the access like propped up by all of the people that were, I guess, unwillingly hanging out with him. Because then that snowballed into him being a legitimate person. And then you do have like the actual diehard friends of Jeffrey Epstein, like Bill Clinton or RFK Jr. or Alan Dershowitz. I guess like the way I look at it is like I put it in two separate categories where like you have those who are just like interesting guy. What the going on here? Maybe they meet one time, which is like still weird and gross.
Still weird, yeah.
At least it's just like, oh, okay, like, or people who are just like, I want to get money from this child sex trafficker, which is again weird, gross, immoral. And then there are the people who are like, you know, who'd be really cool to hang out with and go fossil hunting with? The child sex trafficker guy.
Yeah, gotta be Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, it's to me, it's like, like I'm sure some of those scientists or whatever lavish themselves upon the things that Jeffrey Epstein could provide them on his island. I'm sure that some didn't, The thing that sort of tars them all is the fact that this stuff was known, this stuff was reported on, like he'd been arrested by the time a lot of these people hung out with him. So like, okay, prior to his arrest, you could plausibly, I'm not going to believe you, but you could potentially claim that like, oh, you didn't know. Like there was rumors about this guy, but like you never saw anything. But like after he was arrested for having sex with a child in a public, it was, he got a very light sentence, but this was not like small news. This was a big deal. There's really no excuse. Like it's like, I don't know how much clout chasing you really need to do there. It's like, that's like the big thing it is. I mean, he played it down or whatever, but like at the end of the day, like, it's really hard to play down the fact that you got arrested for having sex with a 14-year-old girl. And I think that like, there's so like some of these people like Gates, I the Gates is the one I'm like, I definitely think that there was something. There's more to that than we know. I mean, obviously, Melinda used the Jeffrey Epstein stuff to really pressure him with the divorce. Like, she leaked that stuff 100%.
Her PR team was very good.
Very good.
That hit the media cycle pretty hard.
So good. And they leaked it at such a good pace, too. Like, they kind of, like, dribbled it out to, like, elongate. It was expert. But I think that there's probably more there, too. That maybe she doesn't want, like, she would be embarrassed about getting out because it would kind of maybe make her look bad that her husband had engaged in this stuff. I hope against hope that eventually one day, like, there will be like a really, really big break and like something will come out about like very specific stuff about Clinton or Gates or somebody like this. But I don't think that this lawsuit stuff is going to be the unsealing of the names. But like with a guy like Prince Andrew, right? Like we have like Prince Andrew is pretty much the guy you have most dead to rights. Like you have a girl, you have a story, you have a photograph, you have like all this stuff. Yeah. And then like what happens to him? He does a sweaty BBC interview and he's kind of like kicked out of the family for a little bit, and now he's kind of back in. And it's like, okay, people still don't really. He was kind of the least popular one. Well, a lot of them are pretty unpopular, but he was a very unpopular prince. Still is an unpopular prince.
And also was like the most visible of the people that committed these acts, right? Like,
for sure. JP Morgan bankers don't have like, I mean, kind of high public profiles, but not like the Prince of England.
Other than the reveals of the names here, one thing that I wanted to talk about with you, I guess it's like somewhat relevant, which you brought up yourself as well, is Ehud Barak meeting with Jeffrey Epstein dozens of times, flew on the private plane, and was photographed. The former prime minister of Israel, by the way, chatters, was photographed leaving his apartment as late as 2016, I think.
Yeah, dude, the Ehud Barak thing, I want to say this right here. Ehud Barak, whatever Prince Andrew was doing, Ehud Barak, you have the exact same pattern. Ehud Barak kind of going to his house in like disguises or whatever, staying in there for long periods of time. A lot of young women entering the house during those periods. We don't know the ages of them, but you know, young, very young looking women.
Yeah.
I think without a shadow of a doubt, something nasty was going on there. He claims that he doesn't remember how many times he visited Epstein. It was somewhere between
That means
10,
too many times. That's how much.
Exactly. He said somewhere between 10 and 100 times, which you know means like 150. It's really damning for Barak. But it's so weird because, like, you know, there was articles about it in like Haaretz and Times of Israel and stuff like that, but it really did not seem to create that big of a political splash in Israel in the way that the Prince Andrew thing did, or like the whole Epstein thing did here. I mean, obviously I can't read Hebrew, so maybe people are really talking about it somewhere, but like Barak has not disappeared from public life. Like he's still coming out, he makes statements, you know, and like is asked for comment on things without him being just noted as like the Epstein friend, but like no, the former prime minister. I mean, I think Ehud Barak is a really good example of one of these international leaders. Epstein may have at some point kind of, I mean, I'm to the most generous reading is that at some point maybe Epstein did present himself as something other than what he was, like, you know, somebody who can really connect. I don't know who the Prime Minister of Israel needs an introduction from that Jeffrey Epstein could provide, but like
there are a lot of instances like that though, where you're like, why the f is it Jeffrey Epstein that you're going to like make these decisions, and it doesn't make any sense, which is why, I mean, there's the allegations that Jeffrey Epstein, not saying that you're making these allegations, of course.
I'm not. I've made no allegations.
Yeah, there's these allegations that Jeffrey Epstein might have been an asset for, I don't know, intelligence agencies in a blackmail operation, whether it be the CIA or even maybe Mossad, which is very different than the CIA, totally different, and not at all connected.
The Mossad connection is really interesting because Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was rumored while he was alive, and then certainly after he died, to have been in the employ of Mossad, one of the Israel's intelligence agencies. I think that there is a pretty strong case that I don't think he was like a blooded Mossad agent trained at headquarters or whatever, but he followed a very similar trajectory as a lot of people in the intelligence world in Israel did from the very beginning. I mean, he fought in the British Army in World War II. He was an intelligence officer.
Yeah.
Afterwards, a lot of rumors that he was involved in Israel's acquiring of airplanes from Czechoslovakia, because that's where Israel acquired a lot of their arms in 1947, 1948 from Czechoslovakia, that he was involved in that deal in some way, which would have really put him very close to a lot of the people who became bigwigs in Israel's intelligence community. You know, the way intelligence agencies work, not just Mossad, but all of them, is they have these people who are like, you know, friends or assets or something like that. Some people who they can call upon to help in times of need or possibly when they need something related to their field. And Maxwell certainly seems to be somebody who they did that to. I mean, he was a huge, well, not only a scientific books publisher, he was had a lot of connections in the Eastern Bloc, particularly in Bulgaria, and possibly was involved in some way in a lot of shady business out there. I have like my own personal weird theories about that would take too long and be too boring to elaborate on. And he was, you know, it was this big newspaper. He was like kind of a Rupert Murdoch figure. And the one thing that really people point to is that when Israel's nuclear weapons program was revealed by a whistleblower named Mordecai Vanunu, that Robert Maxwell was contacted by the Israeli embassy, which means by, you know, the Israeli state, which Mossad, and he was basically required to either get these photographs or to try to undercut the claims of Israel's nuclear program, which they do have nuclear weapons. Everyone knows that, but no one's allowed to say it.
Except for RFK Jr., surprisingly.
Did he say that?
He basically said it in like he was having a conversation at like a press junket or something, and he just like dropped it. He just dropped it in there.
Like that.
But it's like it's one of those things where it's like everybody knows. You know what I mean?
I know, but
like,
they hate it when you do it, dude. They hate it when you do it. They get like super pissed. Like even their boy, like they made Trump and they make every president sign a paper that says you won't say when you become president, as according to the New Yorker a couple of years ago. But Robert Maxwell, Mordecai Vanunu was black bagged and kidnapped back to Israel. And Robert Maxwell eventually got caught basically robbing all of his employees' pensions in one of the biggest scandals in British media history, and then fell off his yacht while taking a piss and died.
Which happens to every, I mean, it's very common. Super common.
Yeah. Yeah,
the Daily Mail said it was what was it? It's like there's some article titles here or something where it's like the Daily Mail is not exactly a reputable outlet at all, but what is it? It's off of the assassination of Robert Maxwell, Israel super spy by Gordon Thomas and Martin Dillon. But it was the speculation, the claim is that he was trying to extort Israel for additional funds due to his financial misdealings, and then Israel was like, yeah, no, that's not happening. Also, you're dead now. That's how people are claiming he went out.
I mean,
it's shrouded in mystery.
My theory on this, which is not, I'm going to say I don't have a lot of stuff to back this up, except quite a bit of circumstantial evidence. I think it was into something weird. I mean, obviously he was into something weird in Eastern Europe, but I think he was into something weird with Eastern Europe and the mob. There's a pretty big mafia in Israel, Eastern European mafia, and I think that he was doing some double dealing there, and I think he tried to do the classic thing where he took some money to cover some other money in the hopes of making money, you know what I mean? And I think that card got punched because of that. But Epstein and Maxwell meet at Robert Maxwell's memorial in 1991 in New York City, and after that they were inseparable. For her part, Ghislaine says that at the time, said that she thought her dad was murdered. And I don't think that it was somebody who had their pension fund robbed that murdered him. I don't think that they have the
capabilities of reaching him.
Yeah, I don't think that the frogmen from the Daily Express desks went out there and off of Spain and pushed him off the boat. But
they're broke. They literally don't have pensions any longer. How the f are they gonna? Yeah, they literally don't have money.
I mean, Epstein has been a friend of Israel. He introduced, just like we were talking about how like people used Epstein for introductions. It's the Daily Mail that I saw this reported in. Although I firmly believe this, that he introduced Netanyahu to some people. I mean, Netanyahu is also a very shady character when it comes to finances, as evidenced by the massive corruption trial that he's been undergoing for the past few years.
Yeah, but that's like a Israeli prime minister special. I feel like you just kind of have to do that.
The grossest detail about it is that his wife, her bribery thing is like she loved pink champagne, and she would always be like, "Can you bring the pinks to the house?" She called it pinks.
That's awesome.
Nasty. But Epstein almost fled to Israel after his arrest.
That's very unique for underage. That's very unique for pedophiles. Actually.
Yeah.
So surprising.
I mean, I feel like the two places you want to flee to if you're a pedophile are France and Israel.
Yeah. France because it's legal and also not only permitted but also encouraged, and Israel because despite being a state basically and an important state and not like a state, it has no extradition policies to the United States of America, surprisingly.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of just like Orthodox communities, these things are handled sometimes very poorly, and so people will, but if they do get to the official level, like people oftentimes will just move to Israel and then won't be able to get extradited. So Epstein actually went there basically on the eve of I believe it was the eve of his sentencing, and I think he was like, I'm going to do it. And then just like, but he certainly had the connections there. I should mention too, when Robert Maxwell was buried, he was buried with basically full military honors in Israel, despite having never been a like full-time resident of Israel and being British, being a British citizen and business owner the whole time.
Well, he had in his memorial that you brought up, it was a real who's who in attendance.
Yeah. It was just everybody. Yeah, and I believe a eulogy given by Yitzhak Shamir, who was one of the people, and I actually just found this out recently. I'd always known that Otto Skorzeny, the famous Nazi sort of swashbuckling hero from World War II, Otto Skorzeny had worked with Israel against the Egyptians, and when the Egyptians were developing a long-range rocket program. And I didn't know that Yitzhak Shamir was part of the hit squad that took out a West German scientist and shot him in the head and poured acid all over him and buried him in Germany. Yitzhak Shamir and Otto Skorzeny were part of that same mission, which is crazy. Israel, I know it's a really small country, but it feels like there's like the same 20 guys up until like, even until now. You know what I mean? Like, Netanyahu's brother was the only dude who got smoked during the raid on Entebbe. It's like they tried to create this like cinematic universe of Israelis, but they didn't have enough money to like really develop any other characters besides like 8 dudes.
Well, now they got nothing though, because like the old cast was like their best cast overall, and now like the old guard is dying out due to old age. So now they just like straight up, they don't have one guy that even has an eye patch. You know what I mean? You gotta have an eye patch guy. You have to have one.
That is, we have an eye patch guy, dude.
Yeah, we exactly.
Which you had your problems with.
Yeah, I know. How the do you miss out on that? Like you nailed the branding so well early on. These are all guys that were doing this sort of thing globally, and then now they're all dying out, and now it's just a nation of like startup entrepreneurs and dudes who open up, as Felix always says, pizza party stores. Like
yes,
and DJs. Well, DJs. Oh my God, so many goddamn DJs.
You saw the people DJing at the memorial, right?
Yes, I did. It was the most Felix Biederman bit of all time, but it was real.
Insane, dude. Yeah, he's really tapped into the Israeli state of mind. I gotta say, it's like I understand the affinity between Germany and Israel because they're not. I don't think it's just like the insane philo-Semitism that the Germans have. They're so weird. It's not just that. They just also love to dance. Like both just like love to dance. And it's the unshakable bond between those two countries.
And also severe lack of humor. I think that's like there's a lot of similarities there as well. Oh my God, the Israeli SNL is just like somehow makes our SNL, which I think is dog look
anti-Semitism.
It looks incredible in comparison. I don't know how.
Anti-Semitism was so good, dude.
Yeah,
that was I feel like those really fell off. They did like 5 in a row and then they completely stopped. I don't know what it is, like if we just function better in the diaspora, but like I'm like, come up with like one. I don't know, you guys don't even have like an Adam Sandler, like an Adam Sandler
like, not even like a good not even prime.
It's bizarre to me. Epstein's link with Israel is really interesting too, because like Bill Clinton was very close with Jeffrey Epstein and the Clinton family in general. Like, I mean, I've said this a million times, this does not get enough attention, that Chelsea Clinton, Bill and Hillary's daughter, went on a yacht trip, which considering her father, very brave of her, went on a yacht trip with Chelsea Clinton in like Ghislaine Maxwell in 2013.
Well, and
These two women were out on the damn high seas.
I love the Snopes on did Ghislaine Maxwell attend Chelsea Clinton's wedding as well, obviously. Not only did she attend the wedding, which Snopes, of course, fact checks as true, but she was also placed prominently, prominently in the front row. So everybody knew that she was going to be in the photos.
Yeah, it's so weird because it's like, dude, they have like guys. I mean, I don't get invited to a lot of weddings for very obvious reasons, which is my very vocal pro polyamory stance, which I do. I speak about at length at the little speeches and stuff, because I feel like if your dad talked, your dad already probably said a lot of stuff to you during your life. I think it's maybe my turn to talk to you guys about maybe modern love. But like they have like people at these rich people weddings to be like, you got to be here, you got to be here, you got to be here, because they get photographed, and like those photographs mean something.
She was placed prominently there so she could be seen down the aisle.
Yeah. And Ghislaine Maxwell, when she got served a subpoena, it was at a Clinton Global Initiative event. I don't hear much about the Clinton Global Initiative anymore.
Maybe now that Clinton is making her comeback, Hillary Clinton is making her comeback, maybe you'll hear about it more in the news. Who knows?
I know, dude. God, I hope.
What was it? She was like trying to save the whales or something? Isn't that her? That was her pet project with the Clinton Global Initiative?
Ghislaine.
Yeah.
Ghislaine's thing was, I got to tell you, after years of looking into this, I still can't figure out exactly what she was doing. Like, there were all these kind of vague things, like she'd made a passport for the sea, which was like, a way to feel like you're part of of the world community that includes the ocean. But as far as things they actually did, it seems like a classic NGO scam, which is nothing.
Yeah.
Like nothing really. I mean, I'm sure that they, had some kind of staff or whatever, but it doesn't look like they were really like saving the whales or whatever. It's astounding because I think a lot of people pointed out in 2016 that like both presidential candidates were friends with Jeffrey Epstein, Trump and Clinton. And then in 2020, of course, well, you had Trump, is friends with him. Biden, he's got his own little Jeffrey at home. And then now we're back to that. So I guess this would be the third election in a row that you have a Jeffrey Epstein friend. In fact, we have two because we have RFK.
Well, RFK Jr. Exactly.
Yeah, RFK Jr. Who else is running? I guess RFK Jr. is running as an independent now or something.
Yeah. Well, Cenk is clear of the Epstein connections. I can confirm.
He's running the Democratic primary, right?
Yeah. RFK is running as an independent.
I'm running on libertarian ticket, but that's because I don't want to have to move to Austin, Texas when the podcast gets bigger to avoid taxes. And so I'm like hoping that I can just get taxes lower everywhere.
The Brooklyn, what was it? You talked about this before. Making Brooklyn tax-free.
Yes. Yeah. Tax-free. Like Brooklyn should become like a, what do they call special economic zone, like Shenzhen, except for like Davros or whatever, like for like comedians to just do
only for comedians and podcasters.
Brooklyn is the Israel of podcasters.
Yeah, it's true. The Terramar Project was a self-described environmental nonprofit organization, was founded in 2012 in the United States by convicted sex offender Ghislaine Maxwell. A sister organization in the United Kingdom was incorporated in 2013. Terramar announced its closure on 2019, 12th of July 2019. This was shortly after New York federal prosecutors arrested Maxwell's close associate Jeffrey Epstein. So how odd that you just, that's a good time to pack it up. She's like, yeah, no, the oceans are safe now.
But that's the thing with like all of these international NGOs too, like the Clinton Global Initiative, all these things. They're just covers for some of the most vile human beings in the modern age to like either launder their reputation or at the very worst actually like do worse things. I gotta tell you, like NGOs are some of whenever there's like news articles about like, oh, whatever, this country or that country like bans American NGOs. I'm like, whatever I think about that country's government, I'm like, good. I would also 100% ban American NGOs from coming in here.
Getting back to Jeffrey Epstein for a moment, this is not necessarily like the client list. And one question I have is, what happened to the tapes? Like, I feel like
a good question.
We never talk about the tapes.
And the hard drives. Listen, Hasan, I've never been to your Parisian villa. You've in fact told me explicitly that I was not allowed to come.
Yeah.
Unless I brought 3 or 4 girls. Because you didn't like the ratio.
Yeah.
You didn't like the ratio of just me, which is okay, fair enough. Not a math guy.
Yeah.
But you need chicks. But I'm assuming that in your house, there is not a giant box of hard drives like in a closet somewhere. Is there?
No, there isn't.
No,
my lawyer has advised me to say no to this question.
I have like one external hard drive that I've had for like 10 years that has like 5 things on it because I realized that didn't really say that much stuff on my computer. And when I was in court for the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, they went over a bunch of the stuff they found from Epstein's house, like that the lawyers took into evidence, or excuse me, not the lawyers took into evidence, that NYPD took photographs of, and some of which they took into evidence. In those photos, there was a massive box of labeled hard drives. We couldn't see any of the labels on them because that was just like the way the photo was taken. But there was all these hard drives, which I'm like, what's on the fucking hard drives? There's also these tapes, which are really, I think, in large part like DVDs or whatever, DVDRs. There's like a whole binder full of those. But the crazy thing about that is that NYPD inventory of a lot of this stuff or some of this stuff, and then they left for the day. People who had access to Jeffrey Epstein's house came. We don't know what happened. NYPD came back the next day and inventoried the stuff, but like, it's like pretty seems apparent to me that there was like probably some people who came in there and made sure that there was not any loose ends that were laying around.
Yeah, it says Agent Kelly McGuire testified that CDs and hard drives disappeared as authorities waited on a warrant to seize them. Evidence from Jeffrey Epstein's safe that the FBI had to break into with a saw went missing after the FBI raid.
Yeah, and it's like, that is, it was FBI. It was FBI.
Yeah.
That is like always what drives me insane is that like these things were in law enforcement's hands, and and they were a lot, not on all of them, but a lot of them were gone. We're just like never, I mean, unless something barring an act of God, like we're not going to know what was on those. And I think that, something, like I'm sure some of those hard drives had financial crimes on them. I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush here. I'm sure that there was evidence of massive financial fraud on some of these things, but I definitely think that there was some incriminating stuff on a lot of these, and probably some stuff that a lot of people had invested interest in not getting out. And many members of our elite class were just like basically willing to go to any lengths to not put out there.
I mean, the suspicion is that Jeffrey Epstein he's running a blackmail operation. For those of you who are just tuning in, part of the reason why he has obviously he has a lot of connections and he has a lot of access, which he created through this network that he deliberately crafted alongside now convicted sex trafficker, sex offender Ghislaine Maxwell, who's serving a prison sentence. But beyond that, the speculation is that there certainly is a lot of blackmail that occurred with a lot of wealthy people.
Yeah, I mean, that's just really putting two and two together, right? I mean, Epstein had really nothing to offer a lot of people. I mean, he did this like sort of very vague financial planning, tax advisory stuff with some people, but like who are, as we've seen from documents that have since been released, like Leon Black, were vastly overpaying and paying like way more to Jeffrey Epstein than they would to even like top accounting firms. But Jeffrey Epstein had no offices. I mean, he had an office, but there wasn't any actual business being conducted there. There was no like 40 people working at the Jeffrey Epstein accounting company. There was nothing like that. I mean, he had basically several secretaries that essentially scheduled his social appointments and young women to come and see him, or young girls. I think that one of the things that you would do if you had these access to young girls in the manner that Jeffrey Epstein did, and you had houses that multiple people have said were wired up for surveillance inside, it really is, you just put two and two together, like
with massage rooms.
And the thing is, like, Epstein was an operator. I mean, even if you take the absolute minimalist view of what Epstein could have been up to, I mean, he was a crook through and through. I mean, his financial deals, which, by the way, we still know nothing about, basically. Like, we know more about Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking operation than we do about his actual quote unquote job. And that's not just like me, I know more about that. Like, that's like in general, the knowledge is much more like much more opaque about his like financial dealings. We don't know anything about that, or we know very, very little. I mean, it seems pretty obvious that like, you have these like powerful connected people in one place, and you give them access to these young girls in rooms that you control, that are in your house, that are connected to your security system. I mean, you would be a fool not you'd be a fool to delete those tapes.
And yet those tapes were not able to be seized. They were found, unable to be retrieved completely. And Jeffrey Epstein, quote unquote, killed himself under incredibly suspicious circumstances that, I don't believe he killed himself, obviously, even though the New York Times wrote an article about how he definitely did.
I mean, it's like the thing about the tapes too is that there's something that came up actually during Ghislaine's trial, although not, I don't believe about the tapes, is about chain of custody. And this often comes up with evidence, right? Piece of evidence accounted for on every step of the way until it gets to the courtroom. And we can say completely with no conspiracy thing or whatever, that is not the case for any of the Epstein like digital archives that he had. I mean, those didn't make it to the courtroom, just pictures of them did, but any of the hard drives or the CDs or anything like that like they were out of the law enforcement chain of custody. And so it boggles my mind that ball was dropped. And because there was a lot of balls that were dropped during the Epstein.
He's just really lucky, even after he died. He's just always lucked out. That's why he got Alex Acosta to give him a sweetheart deal. Yeah. Who became the labor secretary afterwards, under the Trump administration when he was an up-and-comer prosecutor. Another thing that like, I feel like there's so many of these things that are just like in broad daylight, things that people have discussed about the Jeffrey Epstein case, especially when it was like popping to talk about, when it was like definitely very relevant and on top of mind for a lot of people. And we just never talk about it ever again. Like, what the why did nobody ever into Alex Acosta's dealings? Like, and why he gave a sweetheart bargain? What did he mean when he said, well, what was it? In a closed door meeting, I believe he reportedly said that the order came from top down. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's really interesting because like at some point you just run into like there's so many people with just like a vested interest in really like tamping this down. Whether those people were really like deeply involved with Epstein or even tangentially involved or just have interest in people that were involved. It's bad for a lot of people. And fortunately, it's basically only bad for like these people that have power. You know, it's not just bad for like a lot of random people. And so like there is so many people with so much power and so much vested interest in none of this stuff getting out, and they have the ability to like basically squash all this stuff and to like get away from it. I mean, like and I feel like in any other country, not any other country, but in some other countries, there'd be like an inquest, you know, like several people at the top of our political ladder are guilty, basically, or like not guilty, but associated. We don't know. I mean, I'm not saying they're not guilty, but we are suspected of being guilty of doing some funky shit with Epstein. And there should be like congressional hearings, but instead it's like basically just a meme or whatever to like if it ever gets mentioned at the political level, it's some guy like Dan Crenshaw being like whatever, or like you know, or you know, who's that guy with the lisp? You know, what I'm talking about Mike Cernovich or something, being like the Epstein stuff. Like, it's like that's the level it's reduced to, and it sucks. But like nobody has really any interest. Like if you want to make it the Democratic Party, you're not talking about this.
That's why Liz was absolutely on the money when she said we need like crank politicians, like the Mike Gravels of the world that were like crank but in an honest way, but then they would like actually launch investigations and not crank in the Marjorie Taylor Greene type of way. Marjorie Taylor Greene is just an opportunist, like it's obvious, right? And also a sex demon. She's just trying to get a nut off, which to me, I think...
You know that thing is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and she should, you know, it's just good on her. I think we need more ladies doing stuff like that in Congress. It shouldn't just be men. Other than that, though, we don't really have any like, you know, honest, like left libertarian types or whatever that are in government that are going to launch these sorts of inquiries.
We have dishonest cranks.
We need the real cranks back. Yeah. So we got all this. You don't personally think that the Jeffrey Epstein like reveal the names and maybe dates will prove to be all that illuminating? I guess like there will be certain parts that fill in, like plug some of the holes in these stories. Yeah. But the real juicy details that people are expecting to come out of this is not going to be, most likely there is not going to be like Bill Clinton was here with this associate at this date. Yeah.
I mean, listen, I would love that. That would be amazing. I'm just speaking from like the way stuff has come out so far. We did get a lot of really interesting stuff from the JP Morgan and like the Virgin Island lawsuits. And really what was interesting is it turns out that Jeffrey Epstein basically controlled the entire Virgin Islands political apparatus, including technically the prime minister of the Virgin Islands, who fired the attorney general who sued these companies in the first place. Just like we get occasionally stuff that will like really pull back the curtain a little bit, or like sometimes like, you know, a medium little bit, but so far there hasn't ever been like a really smoking gun where it's like it all comes out. And so I'm just not expecting that. If that did happen, I would fucking love that.
I just want more on Alan Dershowitz, you know, anything that... God. I mean, I don't think it's going to stop him, really. I think Fox News will still consistently talk about how, like, pedophilia is on the rise and people are being groomed in middle school or whatever by gay teachers while simultaneously having Alan Dershowitz on every night. But
it's like, have you been in middle school? All teachers are gay, dude. It's I would love more Dershowitz stuff. The thing with like, he is so litigious and so like insane that I feel like, and it, you know, funnily enough, he's like, this will all exonerate me. I'm just like, I just hope that he like, unfortunately, I think it's gonna be like a Kissinger thing where he lives to be 400 years old, but I just wanted to see him suffer.
And not in like I got disinvited from the Martha's Vineyard, Larry David gathering, but like actually a little bit, like face some repercussions.
Where is Martha's Vineyard, by the way? It's like near Massachusetts or something?
I have no... I don't know.
These guys love going to Martha's Vineyard.
I mean, it's the same with like Long Island. It's the same as, you know, going to the tip of Long Island, which is like slightly different. I guess it's like still the same weather, more trees and less buildings.
Have you ever been to Catalina? Have you been to Catalina Island ever?
I have one time, and there was no electricity at the time on the island.
So sick.
Yeah, it makes
We have
no
one.
sense.
There's one in the bay. Well, there's Angel Island, which is in the middle of the bay, which is sick. It caught on fire once, and I watched it. It was one of the craziest looking things I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
No more islands. I think that America just needs to get out of the island business. Now you can't like you're not supposed to go to Hawaii anymore, and so it's like, all right, well then we should just get out of the whole island thing to begin with. You know what I mean?
Zuckerberg is building a compound in Hawaii, apparently.
Yeah, I saw that. The compound thing is weird to me because I'm like, if I worked at that compound, I'd be like, oh, we're gonna kill the guy that owns the compound day one, bro.
Yeah,
like
immediately.
You don't have power over the people that have the compound. If you need the compound, they have power over you because they have the gun. Because like, what, are you gonna pay them with what, dude?
Yeah, that part doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. I genuinely don't get it. It's like every dystopian movie that has like broached the subject, basically it devolves into the same thing where like the people rise up and kill you. Why wouldn't
exactly? I know, it's like, I feel like these guys watch so many movies, but they don't take away the most important part is that you have to basically take the families of your employees hostage if you want to live in the post-apocalyptic world.
It's like
I think I'd be such a good warlord in this, dude, because I would not treat people fairly. I wouldn't even pretend to. I wouldn't try to do that. I'd be like, yeah, like, I'm sorry. I'm going to marry some of you. Like, I would marry all the dudes that work for me. And no, pause, but like, I would do that.
Polyamory,
just to, like,
polyamory. It's in line with your ideals.
I would have that bond between us. And so I'm like, well, you can't betray me. We're family, bro.
No, I mean, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg has the riz that you do in maintaining these relationships. So I think he's cooked. Peter Thiel too. I guess Peter Thiel's a little bit more riz though. That he's more of a.
You're a 19-year-old twink in San Francisco, hanging around. You can get in with Peter.
Yeah, he's well, you know. You could develop a relationship that might go south later down the line, and then you die under mysterious circumstances.
Yeah,
and then it'll just be like, oh, he was sad.
I completely forgot about the Peter Thiel boyfriend jumping out of the building. What the is that? Peter is poly. That's crazy. Like, that should be the biggest news ever. Peter Thiel is polyamorous. Peter Thiel is Bushwick to me.
Yeah, well, the last outlet that outed him is no longer in existence, so I feel like he goes above and beyond when it comes to being litigious.
Do you think I look young enough to have sex with him?
I think you could do it.
You think if I shaved more and put some of that crazy European hair gel in my hair, I could look 20 again?
I like that you zipped up your quarter zipper or whatever to be like, well, look, see, without my chest hair.
It's not quarter zip, my brother. It is.
Are you doing a full hoodie with no undershirt?
Are you talking about a hoodie? There's no hood.
Or not hoodie, but like whatever. You're doing jacket with no zip up with no undershirt.
Yeah,
that's brave.
Zip up with no undershirt.
That's brave.
You should. I got, dude. My underwear right now has so many holes in it. I am dressed like a psychopath. But I
mean, that's par for the course. I'm on the same boat. Like, you don't need to change your underwear.
That's true.
After wearing the same underwear for like 10 years, obviously cleaning it, but
I'm doing laundry right now, and I'm on my last pair of underwear, and they are the pair that is just, it looks like someone shot him with a damn shotgun.
Yeah, I mean, it's normal. The more holes you have in your underwear, the more comfortable it has become.
That's so true, dude.
Yeah,
because exactly. I do be standing in the hallway sometimes in my building and just like letting the breeze rock my shit.
Yeah, there's more points of entry for the breeze. Absolutely. I think it's
I'm on the subway doing that too.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Host of TrueAnon, the podcast.
I got to plug something.
Yeah. What do you want to plug? That's what I was going to ask.
I got to plug something. All right. I want everybody watching to go to www.trueanon.com/STC because at the beginning of next year, we are putting out a product that will change the world. You know about it.
I know what the product is. It's awesome.
It's gonna change. It's a product that will heal America.
You said TrueAnon.stc. What?
TrueAnon.com/STC.
Wait,
let me make sure that's right. Yeah,
you're horrible. No, it is. Yeah, TrueAnon.com/STC.
Yeah.
15 days, 9 hours, 53 minutes, and 52 seconds. Something's gonna come out. The storm is coming.
Yeah, the storm is coming. It's gonna be something else.
All right, I'm stoked for it.
Thank you so much for having me, Hasan.
All right.
I'll be in LA sometime in January. Let me see your house.
All right. Yeah. No. Of course.
So
You just gotta bring chicks.
I will bring, dude. I'm gonna bring so many girls to your house.
Hell yeah.
No, just playing. I only ride with several 50-year-old men, but
That's fine too.
that's good. All right. I will see you. Thank you.
Bye, Brace. All right, folks. That was, like I said, friend of the show, Brace Belden, also known as Racial Jake, also CEO Racial Jake, also known as Pisby Granddad, also known as the Gourmand. But yeah, here it is. The storm is coming. This is what he wanted to play. Also known as Coindexter. Chat, this is who Hasan is listening to when he isn't listening to music. It's true. That is actually very true. I do listen to True and On quite a bit. One of my favorite podcasts out there alongside Chapo Trap House. I just wanted to give you guys a little update on what's going on in the world of Jeffrey Epstein by talking to one of the authorities on the subject matter. My name is Donnie O'Sullivan. Folks, from this moment onward, you would refer to me as Donnie.
Donnie and I here doing jobs for the Group A security, you know? Oh, stress test, motherfucker! What you got?
That's right. Sucking the man's dick.
Are you sucking my husband's dick?
Whoa,
No,
hold on.
no,
Hold on.
I'm Mickey Sinclair.
Nice to meet you too. Luciano DiCenzo, it's a pleasure. Let me ask you something here, Sullivan. Huh? Whenever you got kids and they ask you what was your first job, you gonna tell them grime deliveries? No. Hey, listen, I know I was driving earlier and you flew out of the car, but it was nothing personal. Whoa, hey, easy.
Right, you were driving like a madman. I, on the other hand, am following the law, you know.
You're following the law, my ass.
4 Italians, an Irishman, and an ex-mayor walk into a bar.